So very good morning to all the participants. It's a great pleasure to have you here and on the day 2 of the South Asia SBCC conversation. As part of the session 5 on innovating and collaborating, making strides for behavior change, we have 3 very engaging presentations lined up today. Before I do that, some housekeeping rules. For all participants to note that the microphones and videos are disabled. Please do keep your valuable questions coming in and your comments through the chat. We will take them up at the end of all the 3 presentations. We have our presenters with us to be able to answer. The first presentation we have today is on changing hygiene behaviors and gender norms. Practical experiences from South Asia Wash Results Program in Bangladesh, which will be presented by Mitali Das. She's working as a communications lead at an international environmental NGO called Pure Earth. And Effat, a gender specialist at Plan International, Bangladesh. It is a recorded presentation, but we have the presenters with us to answer the questions. We'll take it forward from here and would request the presentation to be played, please.
Thanks to all the organizers of the South Asia Regional SBCC Summit for giving us the opportunity to present our paper. In our presentation, we will speak about the changing hygiene behaviors and gender norms, practical experiences from the South Asia Wash Results Program, SWARP, in Bangladesh. Mimi, Effat, and I have jointly developed this paper. It's great to have had this opportunity to look deeper into this issue for this event. I am Mitali Das, a communication and gender expert. Welcome you all in our presentation. I would like to share a story of Rahima, a woman lives in a village with her family at Phola district in Bangladesh. Rahima doesn't have access to a hygienic toilet. The water source is too far to wash hands with soap after using it. The pathway to the toilet is also dirty and muddy, which is very dangerous, and it was more difficult for Rahima when she was pregnant. There is also no space to wash menstrual cloths inside the toilet, so Rahima had to wash it in the pond, which is also used for other household activities. But this is not only story of Rahima. This is the common scenario of more than 85 million people in Bangladesh who do not have a decent toilet, and more than 100 million people who lack good hygiene at home. Given this situation, Plan International's SWARP aimed to improve water, sanitation and hygiene behaviors in rural Bangladesh and Pakistan. It was a £38.5 million program, reached 650,000 in 8 upazilas of Bangladesh, 4 in flood-prone areas of the northwest and 4 on the island of Bhola in the south. The behavior change activities we are going to discuss are being run as part of the SWARP. As a payment by result program, the payment system was based on the externally verified achievement of both outputs and outcomes. This means there was pressure to achieve results, but also it gave a lot of flexibility in how we do that. In the first phase of the program, it is found that the outcomes around hand washing with soap the hardest to meet. The project implementers were also conscious that many of the activities targeted mothers to change family members' behaviors and were potentially reinforcing gender norms regarding workloads related to water, sanitation and hygiene. This prompted a review on the approach. SWARP implementing partners were able to take advantage of the PBR flexibility to change the activities from sessions focused on education and information delivery sessions for mothers to a package of more targeted behavior-centered activities for men, women, girls, and boys that also aim to challenge some gender norms within this WASH program. Here, the output phase was to reach people and get them to build a facility or adopt a behavior initially. Outcome phase was to ensure they are maintaining infrastructure or sustaining behaviors over the time. SWARP used the behavior-centered design framework to guide the development of its behavior change approach. Consortium partners agreed 4 priority hygiene behaviors: mapped existing knowledge on the practice, drivers and setting of this, and conducted formative research to deepen insights. Disgust, comfort, attraction, religious purity, nurture, affiliation, and status were identified as potential motivators and used as the basis of 11 fun and surprising behavior change activities. A common best family brand was developed to link activities using relatable characters to role model, target watch behaviors whilst challenging gender norms. Motivational interviewing is at the heart of the approach, emphasizing empathy, self-realization, benefits of change, and power sharing. To maximize participation of different groups, activities are conducted during community, school, religious, and household sessions. Men and boys are reached in 3 ways: community-based theater, household sessions, and sessions run by influential local religious leaders. In the logo of the campaign, the daughter being in front of the father, so it didn't look like the father favoring the son. Humorous and religious activities delivered by local leaders and facilitators helped to increase dialogue between men and women, appears to be helping to erode washed gender norms. Even the campaign launching theatre show also portrayed men taking part in cleaning toilet, which is rarely discussed or addressed before. In the school sessions on menstrual hygiene management, both students and teachers from different gender talked about menstrual health in a class together to break the silence and shame around it. Inclusion was a core theme, and activities supported people to consider diverse needs, including those of children, older people, pregnant women, and people with disabilities. Rest of the slides will be presented by co-presenter Effat.
Now results. The targeted behavior are all improved following the campaign. For the purpose of this presentation, we are focusing on gender-related outcomes. For example, we saw that a big number of latins were installed within the household premises that ensure safety and privacy of the women and girls. 15% had ensured 2 hand-washing devices at their home, which helped to take less time for the women to fill up the device, hence reduce the workload. At the same time, T-balls were installed in such places which are surrounded by the households of the beneficiaries so that women didn't have to cross far distance. It was observed that the negotiation and decision-making skill have been developed among the women as the number of toilet cleaning materials increased by the end of the campaign. On the other hand, the household visit and religious leader session of the campaign had engaged men to buy latrine products and share cleaning activities as well as fetching water from water points. More fathers and husbands were supporting to buy pads for their wives and daughters. The knowledge around the use of sanitary pads also increased among the adolescent girls and women. Now, results. The targeted behavior are all improved following the campaign. For the purpose of this presentation, we are focusing on gender-related outcomes. For example, we saw that a big number of latins were installed within the household premises that ensure safety and privacy of the women and girls. 15% had ensured 2 hand-washing devices at their home, which helped to take less time for the women to fill up the devices, hence reduce their workload. At the same time, T-valves were installed in such places which were surrounded by the household of other beneficiaries so that women didn't have to cross far distance. It was also observed that the negotiation and decision-making skill have been developed among the women as the number of toilet cleaning materials increased by the end of the campaign. On the other hand, the household visit and religious leader session of the campaign had engaged men to buy latrine products and share cleaning activities as well as fetching water from water points. More father and husbands were supporting to buy pads for their wives and daughters. The knowledge around the use of sanitary pads also increased among the adolescent girls and women. Learning. Triggering human emotion by different motivators and status was very catchy to the community people as they could relate it in their daily life. It can be used to make any changes in gender norms toward hygiene behaviors. The campaign modality was very interactive, therefore people from all ages understood the messages and accepted with joy. Religious leaders were very influential in sensitizing men to bring changes in the gender roles. Community theatre were well accepted. Therefore, organizing theatre shows in each ward was very effective to mobilize mass people. It was noticeable that wash facilities were well maintained, where women were influential and the couple had good relationship. It reflects that men's engagement in wash intervention can be very effective by ensuring proper sensitization of the husbands and by building better interrelationship among the couples. Husband or male family members' awareness and sensitivity toward hygiene behavior played a crucial role not only to maintain cleanliness of the latrine but also for sustaining the facility for the long time. Most importantly, for those places where cyclone and or flood hit repeatedly throughout the years. Challenges. There were not enough sessions to engage men, which was a challenge to achieve effective changes. Usually men are the providers in these village families, so they were mostly at work during the daytime. Though some are found nearby of their houses, but they couldn't participate in the session due to being engaged at household work such as repairing houses, farming, etc. The campaign has initiated the most important discussion around washing toilet by men, but it will require more intervention with the men to put it into practice. But the positive thing is that men were very helpful in fetching water while their wives were sick or pregnant. Some sessions were conducted during the pandemic peak time, that's why maintaining COVID-19 health guidelines were a challenge. Meanwhile, we were unable to conduct the school session on menstrual hygiene management as the educational institutions were closed following the government instruction at that time. Recommendations. Men can play a supportive role in the family by engaging themselves in the hygiene practices. This can also contribute in creating a different dimension in the family in terms of gender distribution of labor. That's why more sessions with men are required to involve them into hygiene practices. Engaging both husband and wife in the same session can help to initiate mutual discussion about their shared responsibilities in ensuring family hygiene. Separate session can also be effective where couple session might not be feasible due to certain social norms. Tea-stall session and video show at the village markets can be effective tools to reach out the men. Covering the entire community for any SBCC campaign make the outcomes more visible, measurable, and comparable. Thank you all for listening to us. We'll be very happy to answer if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mitali and Effat for that wonderful presentation of such a successful program in Bangladesh. Some very exciting results and learnings for similar setting interventions for WASH programs. Really some learnings around how to utilize local change makers, religious leaders, and others, and also inclusion of men as a strategy to achieve sustainable results. So some excellent learnings here, and we move on to the second presentation for today. As exciting, bringing in some innovation from on the ground. The presentation is titled Promotion of Biofortified Orange Sweet Potato with Social Marketing Strategies in North India, which has increased the demand for a more diverse diet. It's being presented by Kathryn Merckel. She's an Associate Director of Nutrition and Food Systems at ACDI, where she provides technical guidance on improving market systems and agriculture interventions on improved nutrition. So would request the presentation to be played. We have Kathryn here with us to answer any of your questions later.
Hello, my name is Kathryn Merckel. Today, I will be presenting on a study conducted in 2019 in Uttar Pradesh, India, entitled Promotion of Biofortified Orange Sweet Potato with Social Marketing Strategies in North India Increases Demand for a More Diverse Diet. While I now work at ACDI Voca as a Technical Advisor for Nutrition Food Systems, this research was supported by the Tata Cornell Institute at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. Vitamin A deficiency is a major problem in Uttar Pradesh, with an estimated 62% of children in the state experiencing clinical vitamin A deficiency. This is largely due to insufficiently diverse diets. As we can see here, 80 to 90% of female children of all ages in the state are consuming less than half of the recommended intake of vitamin A. The diets of nearly all pregnant and lactating women as well are severely inadequate in vitamin A. Supplementation is effective at reducing clinical vitamin A deficiency, but isn't deemed suitable for childbearing women and, as we've seen recently, vulnerable to shocks that cause service disruption, such as COVID-19. Thus, in this study, we investigate dietary solutions to vitamin A deficiency. One such promising solution is biofortified orange flesh sweet potato, shown here with its non-biofortified counterpart, white flesh sweet potato. Just 1/3 of a cup of orange sweet potato, even after cooking, is sufficient to meet the daily vitamin A requirements for all adults and children. Previous work in East Africa, where white sweet potato is commonly consumed, shows that farmers are willing to replace white varieties with orange varieties, leading to improvements in the amount of vitamin A in the diets of women and children, and therefore their vitamin A status. It's easy to share as a crop among farmers since it's vegetatively propagated, and as a food, it's tasty, well-liked by children, and adaptable to a wide variety of recipes. Despite this evidence for the effectiveness and the many advantages of vitamin A-rich orange flesh sweet potato as a solution to vitamin A deficiency, integrating orange flesh sweet potato into North Indian value chains and diets will require behavior change. While the white flesh variety is familiar in North India, the orange flesh variety is not and will require sensitization for customers to recognize, differentiate, and value the orange variety over the white variety. Most farmers do not grow any sweet potato, so agricultural adaptation will be necessary as well, meaning that we are working with two overlapping audiences, producers as well as consumers. This study thus sets out to determine how social marketing strategies will impact adoption of orange flesh sweet potato as a crop and as a food in the context of a nutrition-sensitive agriculture intervention in Uttar Pradesh. The first step for the study was determining the values and priorities of the audience. We conducted a trial of improved practices with 16 mothers of young children. This is a methodology developed by the Manoff Group to identify acceptable and feasible behavior change messages. We also conducted several focus group discussions and key informant interviews with mothers, farmers, and market actors. We found that these audiences valued novelty in foods as well as tastiness, time, and labor savings, and minimizing consumption and use of chemical inputs in production. We found that their major constraints were access to productive resources such as inputs, land, and time. We designed our interventions around these opportunities and constraints, including simplifying necessary behaviors, allowing risk-free trialing, and recruiting trusted community members to help share information about the benefits of OFSP. This study was conducted before the COVID-19 pandemic, so we were able to implement it in person. 15 villages were randomly selected in the intervention district. 5 were randomly allocated to be control villages and received no intervention. The remaining 10 received nutrition-sensitive social marketing of OFSP production in the form of regular farmer field schools, access to free vines for the first season, and messages crafted on formative research persuading households to cultivate and store OFSP to add to the household diet. 5 of those 10 villages were randomly selected to receive additional nutrition-focused social marketing and behavior change interventions, including engaging village events such as cooking competitions and mothers counseling on the use of OFSP in child feeding. Household awareness, knowledge, and behavior around OFSP cultivation and consumption was monitored via 3 census surveys conducted at baseline, midline, and a year later from baseline, an endline survey. Adherence and exposure was monitored via attendance at events against comprehensive village rosters. This study was powered to detect a 15% difference in orange flesh sweet potato cultivation across the treatment arms. Moving on to results, we found that producers were initially very interested in the adoption of OFSP as a crop, but cultivation declined as novelty wore off and additional barriers to production became evident. In particular, there was a large amount of pressure from pests, including weevils and damage from livestock and wild animals. Being a new crop to the area, appropriate and effective pest control methods were not easily available. There was also competition from other crops, especially cereals, that had large, reliable market opportunities in the area. Although we were promoting OFSP to be grown in the Zayed season, which falls in between wheat and rice cultivating seasons, we found that the land most suitable for OFSP was the well-irrigated land that was also used for rice paddy nursery. Without access to fast-maturing rice varieties or use of technologies such as direct seeding of rice, farmers needed the OFSP land for paddy nursery and were unable to let the OFSP crop fully mature. Finally, preserving vines to grow from season to season proved difficult due to increasing incidence of weather shocks such as floods and droughts. Among the 30% of households that did cultivate OFSP for at least one season, we found our formative fieldwork findings confirmed. The primary reason that nearly all cultivators in both treatment arms expressed to us for growing OFSP was that it was a healthy food. Around half responded that they tried cultivating OFSP because it was a new crop and that they were curious about it. While OFSP faltered in terms of production, we found that the social marketing of OFSP to consumers in both intervention groups was quite successful. Information about OFSP spread quickly, even reaching the control villages to a small extent. After 1 year of intervention, 94% of households in both intervention groups were aware of OFSP, despite 32% of these households having had no direct exposure to intervention activities. By endline, households were able to list, on average, 2 facts about the health and agricultural benefits of OFSP, and around 85% of households that had heard of OFSP in both intervention groups reported that they would purchase it if it was available in their local market, citing the primary reasons for this as being that it is healthy and tasty. 47% of households reported that they had plans to purchase OFSP, which included behaviors such as identifying neighbors or vendors that would have it for sale or saving money to purchase it when it became available. So where do we go from here? This study found that in the Uttar Pradesh context, consumers are very amenable to adopting new foods such as orange flesh sweet potato if it is promoted in ways that highlight the health benefits and ease of consumption for the whole family. However, we found that without significant agricultural support, production faltered. Therefore, future success of OFSP in North India as a solution to vitamin A deficiency will require integration across the value chain. Interventions must seek to build awareness of market actors of the consumer demand in order to create viable markets to be profitable for producers, alongside building consumer awareness, as we were able to do in this study. Finally, we should ensure we take a food systems lens to ensure that valuable, nutritious foods such as OFSP are not siphoned away from rural communities to meet growing urban demand, but rather that rural markets are developed as well. Thank you for your time. My name is Kathryn Merckel. Please feel free to be in touch with any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great. This was excellent. Thank you, Kathryn. This was really very, very interesting to see how some of the very, local solutions we have with us to address some of the critical underlying, health issues that we have been struggling with for a long time in certain states. Vitamin A deficiency, for example, and how we can address these problems, as I said, with very locally available food resources and engaging local actors. And it's very exciting to see how you try to address both the demand and the supply side to see how there can be sustainability of an intervention like this. And I think at a later stage would be great to hear from you about the scalability of this intervention. And as Kathryn said, I think the findings really hold great potential for scale up and support from supply side stakeholders. So that's very exciting, and we look forward to discussing this more towards the end with you, Kathryn. The third presentation we have with us again is a very, very, very interesting presentation titled Less is More, Prioritising Behaviours for Effective Multi-Sectoral Nutrition. Being presented by Kelsey Torres, who's in Masters in Public Health. She works as a technical specialist, USAID, Advancing Nutrition Program JSI. She's with JSI Research and Training Institute. So welcome, and thank you, Kelsey, for this presentation, and would request for this presentation to be played, please.
Hello, and thank you all for joining this session today on prioritizing behaviors for effective multi-sectoral nutrition, social, and behavior change, or SBC. My name is Kelsey Torres, and I am an SBC specialist for USAID Advancing Nutrition. No matter the sector, people's behaviors are the root of good nutrition. Whether the policymaker, the farmer, the health worker, or the caregiver, the tree and the nutrition program grows from the roots. But as you all know, there is a big gap from where we need to be for nutrition and where we really are. We know many more recommended nutrition behaviors than any of us actually practices on a daily basis. Programs often try to just tell people more information, all the things they should do to keep themselves and their children healthy. Think about how many lists of messages have you seen. I'd like to do a little exercise. I'm going to list 2 behaviors, and I want you to reflect on if you have practiced these behaviors in the last couple of days. Did you eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables yesterday? Did you avoid sugar-sweetened drinks and highly processed foods yesterday? Many people know that these behaviors are things we should all do to stay healthy, but we can see from this exercise that knowing is not enough. People are complex. Contexts are all different. We don't always do the things we think we should, and this is why we need Quality SBC. I am going to tell you about the 3 key steps through a story of Quality SBC. Start by imagining a program, a nutrition program that comes out because the local government and USAID see that children's nutrition indicators are not improving after many years, and many different types of programs. Instead of starting out knowing what activities the program will implement, they decide to follow these 3 key steps to Quality Nutrition SBC. The first is prioritize behaviors. The second, identify factors. And the third, link pathways. These are not the only elements to high quality SBC design and implementation, but these steps are the most important ones for us to ensure our projects do things the right way. First, the program starts by answering the questions. Who needs to do what to solve the problem? Then, of these actions, which would make the biggest difference? To prioritize behaviors, the program reviewed data to find the behaviors that would make the biggest difference to nutrition outcomes. What they found is that the following behaviors were most likely to contribute to improving nutrition indicators, and these behaviors were reasonable to change given the current situation and resources. These behaviors include women's dietary diversity all year, continued breastfeeding up to 23 months or longer, feeding children 6 to 23 months old animal source foods, and safe feces disposal for all households. The evaluation found that focusing on this smaller number of behaviors avoided overloading or overwhelming community members, local leaders, and programmers, and it led to better impact. This shows that we can do anything, but we cannot do everything, not at the same time at least. The key point is that we want to be sure to list a reasonable number of priority behaviors at the very beginning. USAID Advancing Nutrition prepared a simple tool to help guide the prioritization process, and I will share a link for this at the end. Next, our imaginary program sought out to understand what will make these behaviors easier to do by removing barriers or adding supports. This takes us to step 2, identify factors. For each priority behavior, programmers collected existing research on the prioritized behaviors and found enough to guide continued breastfeeding and sanitation. The program held rapid consultations on women's diets and feeding young children animal source foods to fill the research gaps. They found that increased family and community support was needed for all behaviors. For improving women's diets, they also needed to address food taboos during pregnancy and women's decision-making power. For child feeding, the program identified a need to increase access to affordable options of animal source foods with policymakers, producers, and market vendors. In summary, the key point here is that programs should note which factors are important for priority behaviors and how they will be addressed. These factors should be clearly stated in work plans, monitoring and evaluation plans, and project reports. Instead of coming to the SBC strategy and work plan with activities already planned, our imaginary program selected and refined activities by creating pathways from the behaviors to factors to activities that will address the most important factors. This is the third and final key step. The program looked at what strategic activities were necessary and what systems needed to be in place to change behaviors. It was not a grab bag approach. For this program, this meant emphasizing engagement of family members, not only counseling mothers, because a lack of family support was an important factor. They used community dialogues and media to address food taboos, another key factor. The program also put more emphasis than initially expected on working with producers and market vendors, since their analysis of factors showed that these groups played a vital role in increasing access to affordable options of animal source foods, a key factor for improving complementary feeding. The program planned and implemented these activities because the research showed that they will influence the most important factors. They worked together to make
I'm really sorry. It just for a second, the internet drops. It stopped. I'll just start it again.
Okay. Thank you.
is not instead of starting out knowing what activities the program all year, continued resting or overwhelming community members takes us to step 2. They found that increase with policymakers coming to the SBC strategy and work plan with activity to factors. The program looked at what strategy to address food access to affordable options of animal source foods, a key factor for improving complementary feeding that influence priority behaviors. And programs should be able to show evidence of the pathways linking their activities to the prioritized behaviors and their factors. Now let's put what we've learned into practice with an example. For the purpose of this exercise, let's assume we have already prioritized nutrition behaviors, and one of those behaviors is caregivers feed children 6 to 23 months old a diverse diet. Using existing research and formative research, we would identify the key factors that influence whether or not caregivers practice the behavior. Next, we need to select activities by linking them with factors so that each activity is selected based on what is really needed to change the behaviors. Here are some more resources if you're interested in learning more. First, we have a review done by Fanta in 2018, which looked at the social and behavior change methods and approaches used in 11 legacy Food for Peace development food security activities. This report is important because it was instrumental to guide some of the work we talked about today related to doing quality SBC. Next, we have 3 useful documents that USAID Advancing Nutrition released over the last couple of years. Behaviors to Improve Nutrition and Factors that Influence Multi-Sectoral Nutrition Behaviors are 1 to 2 page references adapted from the USAID Accelerate project. We also have an SBC Do's and Don'ts tool that practitioners can use while preparing SBC implementation plans and identifying areas to adjust programming. The last resource describes the process we discussed today. It is a practical tool that guides program staff through the 4 steps needed to prioritize behaviors. This includes tables and instructions. It is being used by different USAID Nutrition SBC partners. I wanted to wrap up this session with a few key takeaways to remember. Please feel free to add any other takeaways in the chat. First, quality SBC depends upon understanding and prioritizing behaviors. This helps to ensure impact, and it avoids overwhelming people. Second, priority behaviors and linked pathways from behaviors to factors to activities are key. And finally, there's a step-by-step process programs can follow to ensure high-quality SBC. Please visit our website at www.advancingnutrition.org to learn more. We would also love to hear from you about your experiences with quality SBC and prioritizing behaviors. Please send us a message at info@advancingnutrition.org. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelsey. That was very, very interesting, and I think a very important reminder for us all working in communication design to have an impact, it's very, very important to keep your entire approach strategic and not lose our focus on that. And I think a common thread which ran across the presentations today really talks to the criticality to prioritize barriers to behavior change really, and see what the facilitators are, and study really the context on the ground, because one size fits all approach really doesn't work. So really look at the context very intricately to understand what the barriers are and what the facilitators are. So, and to stay really true to the local context, as the innovations and solutions will really emerge from there is a learning that we have from all the presentations today. I would open the floor for the questions that the participants have, and we can take the questions in the order of the presentation. So if we have any questions for Mitali and Effat on the Bangladesh presentation on WASH, we could take those up first. Please do put in your comments in the chat box, and we'll be happy to pick them up. Okay, so if there is, I think there's something that would be good to understand, Mitali and Effat, from your research and from the campaign successes. How, what were the, how did the systems in terms of signaling and measurement of success that you adopted to, and what was the approach to that really?
Effat, maybe you can go for that, the result part.
Yeah, but Ajan is ongoing, so I think we can skip for a while. Later I can answer that question.
Right, okay. So there is monitoring that's going on, and then that's the process that's going on. Excellent. And I think, so I think, is there anything interesting that you would like to share with the audience in terms of your process of identification of barriers at the local community level, and how you got around to the selection of facilitators and the success that you had with that? Mitali, I think, can you hear us?
I think it was very crucial intervention, because it was more about, yeah, I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that it was really very crucial for us to kind of put this gender lens to this whole WASH behavior, because earlier in these areas and in most of the villages, the practice is more like most of the household chores depends on the women, and with that, the cleaning toilets and maintaining hygiene behaviors in the family is also a very prominent responsibility for the women. So this is, I think, a very unique way to kind of involve men in this whole WASH behaviors, and this campaign has helped to kind of initiate this conversation with the men. And through this process, we did, as we said, that we did some household sessions with the men. Also, we have involved religious leaders. So it was a very combined and collective approach to kind of bring men on board, so that they can have more shared responsibilities. And I think another most important and interesting part was like to kind of understand what we mean by hygiene, or what should be ideal latrine should be. So for that, we have given them. It's not like we told them how it is. Rather, we wanted to have them opportunity to choose their own kind of hygiene facilities. So we made some flashcards, and they have chosen, they have actually gave mark which one is a better toilet, and what kind of toilet they want for themselves, and how much they can actually do it together in their family, within their budget, and within their, what is their priority. So we have seen that in most cases, that people often say that we don't have budget to maintain this hygiene products or things, but at the end, it's we saw that it's also about prioritizing things, and also as men work as a provider. So there was also communication gap between these the couples and the men and women in the family. So this campaign also helped to initiate that conversation, like how we can prioritize hygiene, and how can men and women both discuss and make decisions together to ensure these facilities.
Super, thank you, Mitali. And I think it's a very important point that you brought in, which is really about, I think, twofold. One is really to get community ownership, which is pretty much as part of the design of the program. It comes from them, and that ownership is very important for sustainability. And the other is the gender lens that you spoke about, and how important it is right from the beginning of the strategy design to engage men as co-owners of this. So yeah, congratulations on the success of this program, and we look forward to hearing more about this as you go forward. So thank you both, Mitali and Effat, and we would move to some questions that we have for Kathryn. I think you've attempted to answer, and maybe you would like to talk a little more, Kathryn, to the fact that would you be continuing this research to understand the actual behavior change with respect to the buying and consumption of OFSP? So.
Yeah, so as I had mentioned in the chat, I myself won't be, but I think that, you know, there's varieties of orange sweet potato that have been developed that are appropriate for Uttar Pradesh and appropriate for several northern Indian states. And there are several agriculture research institutions that are working to develop and promote these varieties. So certainly if this is something that sounds useful to any of the organizations or you know, experts we have here on this call, I'd be happy to connect you with those institutions and talk about maybe how some of the lessons from this research, as well as the work that these institutions are doing, could you know, provide a very interesting and sustainable solution to vitamin A deficiency in those areas.
Right, and I think this is definitely a space where we need to watch out for more to see how this is going to develop and evolve, and so this is super exciting, and I think a great innovation both in terms of how we can introduce really locally available food products, something, as we say, that is something that can be integrated into the ongoing programs, and that's something that's crucial, as you mentioned, that we need to integrate with the ongoing programs to take it to scale, which is going to really make it something that's sustainable. So now we also have, is there anything, Kathryn, that you would like to share with us that maybe was not part of the presentation and that you would really like to, you know, highlight for us going forward, how things are going to be?
Yeah, I think the only, you know, the thing that is a major takeaway from all of this is thinking about how these interventions that we do with individuals and communities and households fit into the larger systems that they're a part of, and really understanding their place within market and food systems and how they interact with those systems. And so whether, you know, the behaviors that are being promoted are sustained, you know, supported and sustained by the systems that they interact with, and whether, you know, there are policies and an enabling environment that allows those behaviors to actually take place. So it's not just about, you know, individual preferences or individual household behaviors, but rather, you know, what's actually facilitated by the larger market and food systems that these households interact with.
Right, great. Thank you, Kathryn. And go over to Kelsey. An interesting question, Kelsey, really here, that we've always, you know, seen that intention and action gap, and where the intention is not, definitely not, does not reflect the actual behavior change, and how that is going to be addressed.
Yes, it's a great point and great question. I think really what we think about during programming is to from the very beginning, by starting with the prioritized behaviors and then the linked factors and activities, we can build those out in our strategies. And so, we get those from the research and the evidence, and then we build out the strategies with those, and then continue to monitor those factors as we implement the program. So I do think, it's particularly important that we're looking at, as Kathryn said, factors other than individual preferences beyond that. So accessibility or community norms or service provider competencies or market vendor availability, and all of those factors together are required for behavior change, and they're each addressed maybe with different activities. So not necessarily just communication, actually definitely not just communication. We need much more than that. So potentially a good supply chain, as Kathryn said, policy, really getting that enabling environment in place, and then also monitoring all of those different pieces as we go to make sure that we have prioritized the right behaviors, to make sure that we have addressed the right factors, and that the activities that we've selected are making a difference. So we want to do that throughout monitoring and not just wait till the end line to reflect back on how we've done, so that we can make adjustments and adaptations along the way in our behavior change programming.
Right, Kelsey, thank you so much. And I think this has been like very, very interesting presentations to see, some very forthcoming work, and a space to watch out for, as I said. A lot of these conversations and discussions bring us back to some very elemental things in terms of communication designs and impacts that we wish to see in terms of engaging the communities right from the beginning. Really spending a lot of resources and energy and time really in understanding the problems and the barriers there, rather than kind of rushing into the communication design stage, which is of course the most exciting. But how do we really spend in our time and resources and wrap our heads around where the issues are, and really contextualize them very, very closely from the audiences that we are working in. So I think thank you very much to all the presenters for sharing such excellent work with all of us. It's been a great learning, and I would request all the presenters to please share their email IDs in the chat box so that our participants can reach out to you for any further questions, queries, collaborations that they may want to do. So please do that. And I thank all the participants immensely for attending the session and participating here. Please do join in the following sessions on some of the other exciting presentations coming up as well in this great meet that we have here. So thank you all very much once again, and do feel free to reach out to the presenters for questions on their presentations and the work. Thank you all very much. Have a good day ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, but I didn't respond to your question. So what should I do now? Should I write up here, or what can I do?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead, and you can write up in the chat box as well, and we can reach out on the email addresses as well. Yeah,
sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Hope
much.
you all had a good day. So I'll be closing the meeting. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you.